What's up? Good morning, everyone. This is Dan at Unicorn Riot. Good to be with you. We're coming into day 24 right now, the Derek Chauvin trial. It was pretty intense last night. I'm going to be pulling some clips to run from that later here. There were a lot of protests and police action in response to people gathering with Dante after the killing of Dante Wright on Sunday in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, and we were streaming for hours from that until fairly late, and the weather was tough, of course. So it's great to have you all here. We're waiting for trial to start. There was a curfew in 4 counties in Minnesota, which is pretty extraordinary. I can't remember that ever happening before in the Twin Cities. So we're on day 24. Let's see where people are signing in from. Southern Illinois, the Netherlands, Hibbing, Minnesota, Connecticut. Someone's coming out of lockdown in Frogtown or in St. Paul. Ketchikan, Alaska, Philly, Montgomery, Alabama, South Bend, Indiana, North Carolina, more North Carolina, Philly, Blaine, Minnesota. Good morning from U.S. Bank Stadium, Atlanta, Northwest Indiana, Virginia, Houston, Texas, Crystal, Minnesota, Fort Lauderdale, Worthing in England, Arizona, Costa Mesa, California, Sacramento, Albany, New York, Barbados, ACAB, Kansas City, Missouri, Houston, Texas, Southwest Louisiana, Brooklyn Park, Hopkins, Denver, South Dakota, Humboldt County, California, Northwest Indiana, Charleston, South Carolina, 5 minutes away from Brooklyn Center, Baltimore, Maryland, downtown Minneapolis, Credit River Township, Minnesota, and a delivery driver working in Brooklyn Park today. Fort Worth, Texas, good old Brooklyn Center, Portland, Oregon, Austin, Texas. Over on YouTube, Cuenca, Ecuador, Vancouver, Washington State, Richmond, Virginia, Michigan, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Rockford, Illinois, Hamburg, Germany, Guten Tag, Duluth, Minnesota, the Netherlands, UK, Michigan, Dallas, Texas, Milwaukee. It's great to have you all here today. We're just waiting for things to start up. I'm pulling down videos from the streams last night. A lot of people saw the streams. We had a lot of people tuned in. It was pretty intense out there, so we'll be able to run some stuff from that. Good morning, Ontario, Pueblo, Colorado, Augusta, Georgia, Walker, Minnesota, North Dakota, Washburn, Wisconsin, Huntsville, Alabama, Philadelphia, Riverdale, Georgia, Kandiyohi County, Minnesota, St. Louis Park. There was a St. Louis Park SWAT team there last night. Brooklyn Center, Southside Minneapolis, Lenoir, North Carolina, Apple Valley, California, Duluth, Minnesota, Powderhorn, South Minneapolis, Louisville, northern suburbs of the Twin Cities, Mankato, Eden Prairie. There was also Eden Prairie cops there last night. Brooklyn Center, Minneapolis 1312, Tennessee, Plymouth, Minnesota, West Virginia, Austin, Texas, Omaha, Nebraska, Portland, Oregon, York, Pennsylvania, Brooklyn Center, Berlin, Germany, hello there, Model, Colorado, hi from Toronto, Whittier, Walker, Minnesota, let's see, Eagle, Michigan, Mumbai, hello Mumbai, Northeast Minneapolis, Colorado Springs, Akron, Ohio, raised in Port Arthur, Texas, Manitowoc, Wisconsin, Portland, Oregon, Chicago, Reno, Nevada, Proctor, Minnesota, good morning from Alderaan, Commonwealth of Dominica, Greenfield, Indiana, Brooklyn Park. Yeah, we are back at it bright and early. That's true. Minot, North Dakota, home of the Nukes. Radcliffe, Kentucky. Looks like they're going to start here soon. I'm glad everyone's here. Riverdale, Georgia, Kandiyohi County, Tipton, Michigan. Do we think the curfew is going to continue tonight? We'll see. Hopefully we'll know by 2 o'clock or by the lunch break. I feel that'll be good. It'll be good to know. New Zealand, St. Louis, Missouri. I'm Dan with Unicorn Riot. Obviously Nico was running around doing a lot, so I'm running this stuff here today. Miami, Florida. Yeah, so defense, let's get down to it. So the defense is basically going to be starting their case, right? It's a little bit like baseball. The innings switch, and then the other team gets to start calling witnesses. So, it's a lot to deal with, but they're going to be. We know for one thing that what The Intercept reported was that someone who promotes the concept of excited delirium, some kind of forensic pathologist or something like that, who's helped excuse similar cases to this, is for sure on the witness list. People are just asking, did Nico make it out okay? Yes, Nico made it out okay. Here's the judge. This might be it. Yes. Thanks for joining us, everyone. So again, we are expecting the defense to start making its case today. Closing arguments on next Monday.
Hey, good morning, everybody. We're on the record. We are outside the presence of the jury to discuss the admissibility of the body-worn cam of which witness is it, Mr. Nelson?
Peter Chang.
All right, and I have had a chance to review it. Mr. Frank, the state had an objection.
Good morning, Your Honor. Yes, we do have objections to the body-worn camera video. As I indicated to counsel last night, we would object to admission of Officer Chang's body-worn camera video after the time stamp of 1:15:35. That, as I think I tried to point out, is that zoo time thing rather than the regular time that the MPDs are in. But it's also running time 5:12 on the scale below. Within that first 5:12, there is a particular piece that we need to talk about because Officer Chang sits in his squad car and runs Mr. Floyd's name while his body cam is looking right at the screen. And information about Mr. Floyd pops up. Some of that is actually you're able to read, and because this, if it's made an exhibit, would be public, we think it's inappropriate to have information about Mr. Floyd on that screen available as an exhibit or generally to the public. So somehow that has to be obscured. We don't care if a black box is put over it if it's obscured in some way, but it's within that portion of the rest of the video we recognize is admissible and relevant, because that time frame is the incident itself. Officer Chang arrives, interacts with the two officers and Mr. Floyd as they go over. After Officer Chang comes back over to the Dragon Walk side of 38th Street, he admits in a statement he no longer sees what's going on over there. Because this is a reasonable officer standard, as we all know, what happens after the restraint and across the street on 38th is simply irrelevant to the issues at hand. So after that point in the video is where we believe it reasonably loses any relevance. After that point, of course, there's audio, and Officer Chang speaks to the two individuals that were passengers in the car, and it's just full of hearsay. And some of that would be offered to prove, we believe, the truth of the matters asserted in those statements about what happened. So it's full of hearsay after that. There is a moment where Officer Chang towards the end is standing around as the officers do some follow-up, and this court allowed video of that time period as relevant to conducting or finishing their investigation. So I see where the court might find that particular period of Officer Chang's video to have some relevance. So in that sense, we would object to that portion, really as cumulative, because of course the better video of that has already been admitted with Officer Chauvin's body cam during that time period when Officer King comes out. I believe that was the court's ruling about why that's relevant. It shows something about the intentions of their investigation. So our objections are being able to read the screen in Officer Chang's squad car if he pulls up the information about Mr. Floyd. After 1:15:35 is simply not relevant. It's full of hearsay and potentially a cumulative objection as well. Thank you.
If we were to characterize this as bystander video of the bystanders near the Dragon Walk, who were the people that Mr. Floyd was with earlier that day, or earlier before this going into the store, how is it different from the bystander videos that the state offered and played with regard to statements that were made? And
the other bystanders are part of the incident. Certainly the defense has regularly cross-examined about the tone of voice of those bystanders and their effect apparently on Mr. Chauvin at the scene. They are part of the incident itself. They cannot really be separated from the issues involved in the restraint and the reasonableness of it, and I fully expect that's why there was no objection to that. This is a video of across the street. In my review of the video, you can't even hear what's going on in this video until the ambulance has come and gone and one of the witnesses starts to walk this way, towards the Dragon Walk. So it does not capture the relevant interactions and portions of the incident.
Okay, Mr. Nelson?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I would break Mr. Chang's video into kind of three relevant sections, or three pertinent sections, I should say. The first being the initial reaction as described by Mr. Frank, the first approximate 5 minutes of the video. And then there is a period of time, a second period of time, where Officer Chang is dealing with the passengers. And then the third part of the video I would characterize as the occurrences after the ambulance has arrived and left and what happens there. In terms of the first section, I do believe that it is relevant to to the analysis. It shows another perspective of what was happening at that particular moment. I would need to figure out fairly quickly how to get that blocked, how to get those portions of the computer screen blocked that contain information about Mr. Floyd. There's that section. I don't think, subject to that redaction, I don't think the state apparently objects to that. The second part, I believe, is relevant because it shows another officer's reaction to what is going on. It shows other bystanders' reactions to what is going on. And you can see during that period that Officer Chang is pacing kind of back and forth, trying to split his attention between the passengers and also observing what's happening across the street. Again, in terms of the reaction to the crowd and the crowd growing more and more vociferous as time progresses. So I do think it's relevant because it shows it from a distance. It shows Officer Chang walking. It shows at scenes where people are standing on other sides of the street. It shows the traffic. It shows people slowing down and watching. There's a lot of information that can be gleaned from that segment. The third segment, I think, is also relevant because it demonstrates, again, the continuing efforts of the police and also the continuing interactions with the citizens who observed, and goes to, as is being alluded to, is that if the crowd was a distraction or the officers perceived this gathering of people, whether we want to call it a crowd or a group or whatever, whether the officers perceived that to be a risk or a threat, and how that may have continued and ultimately influenced officers' decisions. So I believe it is highly relevant. I do not believe it is hearsay in the sense of you don't hear anything, essentially very little that the officers say. The officers don't talk about what just happened over there, with one small exception relevant to Mr. Williams and Miss Hansen. There's some comments there. I believe that part may already be in one of the other body cameras. I'd have to go back and double check. That being said, Your Honor, I don't think it's cumulative because it again shows a different perspective. It shows a reaction of another police officer and what he was doing. It shows the surroundings from a different perspective and is highly relevant to the trier fact.
I have reviewed the entire thumb drive that contains the exhibit, and I do find that it is relevant and not cumulative to a certain point. I would note that the body cam includes video from a distance what is happening in front of Cup Foods, but also the timing of when the fire engine 17 shows up. And since the emergency EMS response has been litigated in this case and is relevant as to when EMS showed up, when the fire engine showed up, firefighter Hansen specifically described how she would assume it'd be within 3 minutes. This puts that in a time frame on the EMS call, and so that is relevant. And to the extent that there are any statements made, I find they're not offered for the truth of the matter asserted, or to the extent they are, they fall into the residual exception because these are people just making comments of their observations at the scene. There's no motive for them to lie or anything else, so they would certainly be reliable. They're not inculpatory in any way. And so I think it would fall into the 807 residual hearsay, even if it is offered for the truth of the matter asserted, but it does not appear to be that the state is trying, or the defense is trying to prove the truth of the matter asserted. So with that, I'm going to order that you redact the part when the officer is looking up on the computer. I think for today's purposes, you can simply fast forward through it 30 seconds or so when you get to that point. That way the jury won't see it when you publish it today, but it's got to be redacted. You got to take it back, and before we submit this to the jury for deliberation, it has to be taken out. So basically when he gets in the squad until when he gets back out of the squad. And I'll advise them that it's been edited to take out irrelevant materials up until the time the fire engine leaves. Anything after that is not really relevant. To some extent it is cumulative, as the state has said. but up through the time the fire engine leaves is appropriate. So with that redaction in the middle and the ending after the fire engine leaves, the body-worn cam will be admissible.
I should be able to, in about 10 minutes, accomplish that.
All right. You can actually accomplish the redaction within 10 minutes?
I would just be cutting those clips out rather than trying to put some sort of black screen on.
No, that would be my preference.
So if I can have about 10 minutes, Your Honor.
Let's reconvene now. Let's bring the jury back at 9:30, and we'll start at 9:30. Yeah. This is your copy, Mr. Nelson? All right. We'll reconvene at 9:30. Anything else that we need to go over? All right, we're off the record then.
Hey everyone, again this is Dan, thanks for joining us this morning. So we are waiting for the start of the jury to come in. This is morning motions. If you're new to this thing, they'll do more motions kind of first thing in the morning. And I guess this was one of these body cams that the state didn't want all of to be entered. Some of it was redundant, which they call cumulative. Things are cumulative. They've sort of already been laid out. To someone's comment, yes, Nelson is not good at PDFs, and I almost wonder if it's an act. That's speculating on my part, but he's just like, I'm just a simple lawyer who can't open a PDF and show you people. It's like, okay. Anyway, it's just a pattern I've noticed. So thanks for tuning in. You know, we're definitely into day 24 here. And so what we've been hearing this week is that the defense arguments are pretty much starting today. The judge said yesterday that he was going to try to basically let everything finish at the end of Friday. Friday could end early, and then the closing arguments will be on Monday, and then jury deliberation starts. I think they'll be sequestered when they're deliberating. And so the judge said he didn't want to make everyone start deliberating over the weekend, but he said bring a bag, you know. So they are going to be sequestered for deliberation, and that starts Monday. So the witness list is, 400 people potentially, and I don't believe there's like a defense specific list. It's just like this was a universe of 400 people. The jury process was checked against the 400 people, and then Nelson can kind of pick out. I think Nelson can pick out of those 400 people who he wants. So that's the deal there. Again, I'll just go over the main players. We saw Keith Ellison on the videos last night, or rather, on the live stream. We were shown a video someone else caught of Keith Ellison addressing this crowd. So I'm kind of wondering if that might even come up, today or something. Ellison was talking to this crowd of people, apparently saying, okay, we are prosecuting this case already. Like, we are prosecuting. He was trying to make that argument to these young people out there, I think in Brooklyn Center. And he was saying that, we are going to prosecute this officer who shot Dante Wright. And so, obviously, so that was very busy. I'll run some more clips from it last night. It was, intense. And it's tough, right? Because it's like these police violence things, one layers on top of another. So this trial is still going on, but now there's another one that's happening. And so it's fairly, it's tough. But the part of what I've tried to do to back it out and sort of look at the history, right? Because younger people who might not have been around in this stuff in the Twin Cities 10, 15 years ago might have not learned about this stuff recently, and so we're trying to highlight that stuff. So our post, so to kind of back it up, run it down a little, our post here, protests erupt in Brooklyn Center after the police killed Dante Wright. I think the videos from last night are added on to that as well. A lot of people have been checking that out, so that stuff is on our website at unicornriot.ninja. And, oops, one moment. So you can check out our website. Again, it's unicornriot.ninja. It really helps a lot if you share our work out there. The Chauvin trial landing page is that banner across the top. So, please subscribe to our work. Let your friends know. We've got a couple news stories about the pandemic in Brazil. So that's another story I've been having going on. Obviously, a lot of us have been working really hard on the trial thing, but we also do try to look at international trends and stories and things like that. So we've been trying to do the Brazil story, get new contributors in the mix and that type of thing. So again, we're just waiting. There's like 9 minutes till court comes back. So one thing I mentioned at the end of yesterday, or end of court on yesterday, that one of the spy planes was up. I think it was N115SP is the tail number. So you can usually spot the state patrol planes, unlike the FBI planes, which are sometimes hidden in playing transponder games. Our contributor Sam Richards had a story. He was able to pick off a spy plane from the FBI just before the trial started using this air traffic detector and some other telemetry systems. So planes are not as easy to hide as they used to be. So what we're trying to do is take a look at, what led up to this, right? Like, what makes these officers so trigger happy? What training was involved in this? And so the Bulletproof Warrior Training Manual was one thing that the Post Board, which is the training board that certifies and manages police officers in Minnesota, would allow this Bulletproof Warrior training, and that was encouraging police to shoot people at high amounts. And it took the activist people a fair bit of effort to get that removed from the doctrine, right? Like, that doesn't come for free. Like, it takes a lot of effort to get, trigger-happy doctrines removed. And this story, Public Forum, focuses on flawed police education. From around that same time, was really breaking down how that stuff works. What's wrong with this killology and Bulletproof Warrior and these other shoot first, ask questions later type trainings that are really unreasonable. And we've learned so much during this trial about certain underlying systems of Minneapolis and the Twin Cities. One of our former members had a story about the Fusion Center tied to fake social media accounts, and Lieutenant Rugel, who used to be running the Strategic Information Center. So again, this was an older story, but we were caught, the Minneapolis police, creating social media sock puppets so that they could spy on social movements, keep an eye on our video feeds, stuff like that. So that was significant. Another thing from back around the time of the killing of Philando Castile, record numbers of complaints against Minneapolis police amidst ketamine and killings. People in our chat have talked about getting dosed with ketamine as a sedative when they've been held in the Twin Cities. And so that, again, that's an older story, but it all is cumulative. It all leads up to these things. More recently, this was a story that I worked on with Nico and our contributor Sam Richards about Jay Coles, who's a pretty, definitely basically one of the main police propagandists of the Twin Cities. And some years back, he created this thing called Pointergate, where he claimed that pointing was a gang symbol. It was quite absurd, but then he said that, anti-fascists attacked the Capitol and reported that on Channel 5 in the Twin Cities, and they had to walk that back, which was ridiculous. But this story looks at how the police are feeding him information to try to discredit activists at George Floyd Square, and he goes on Joe Souchere's Garage Logic podcast to talk about how his friends in the police are trying to feed him info about activists in order to discredit them. And it is really fairly disgusting to get a sense of his methodology, but we're trying to raise the profile of media criticism in the Twin Cities and get that out there. So that's on our website. And again, I love to refer to this because it's so useful. We have this field force operations story that we released just after the 2016 election. It's a manual that we got through a Freedom of Information Act request, which shows the tactics for what they call the field force. And the field force is mobile cavalry style policing, multi-jurisdictional. It's basically the same kind of stuff we saw last night. And this explains the weaponry, the tactics, a lot of stuff about it. It's basically a Rosetta Stone for this whole subject. And if you're trying to understand how police work in the United States and how these things are put together, it's a very helpful resource. So please take a look at that. I just always love to keep coming back to it. So yeah, we got about 5 minutes left here. I'll just see what else we got. So I'm going to run a short video, a couple minutes. Again, we'll go back to the spy plane. The spy plane was coming up, was back around either last night. It was definitely up on Sunday night. Another spy plane, I think it was N113SP, was up last night as well, circling both Brooklyn Center and South Minneapolis. And so these spy planes have pretty advanced optics, infrared. You can see the heat blocks in this image. Like, heat is represented as black by the invert image. Yeah, the planes are loud. They're freaking annoying. So so that's a major element. Like, everyone in the Twin Cities has really had it with the helicopters, the airplanes. We saw Blackhawks doing exercises in the Vermilion Wildlife Refuge, which is south of the St. Paul Airport. The St. Paul Airport downtown is definitely a busy base for a lot of this aviation activity. So the airplane thing, it's significant, right? And our contributor Sam was able to get this out through a FOIA. When we're not live streaming, we try to do data requests. We try to dig around and to get the facts, right? We try to give people, put facts together about it. Obviously, we have our own frame of analysis, but we're trying to put new facts on the table. So thanks for tuning in. I'm going to run this short one while we're waiting for the jury to come back in. We really appreciate your support. Go to our website, unicornriot.ninja. If you can support what we're doing, that's terrific. And again, we got about 3 minutes left here, so I'm going to run this video. Thank you all for tuning in. Again, this is Dan. So far this morning, Chris is up. I think Nico got a little bit of sleep, but he'll be back helping out as well. Alex has been tweeting this week a ton. And so, obviously go to, twitter.com/UR_ninja. We're getting a lot of new good followers on Twitter, which is great. So thanks for tuning in. We're going to keep on this thing as much as we can. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Again, this is Dan at Unicorn Riot. So I'm just going to hold it here because I think we are expecting the jury to come back momentarily. And so I was just kind of running that video from some reporting that our contributor Sam Richards did, because Sam was able to obtain how that infrared spy plane works, and the spy plane was up for sure on Sunday night, and a similar plane was up last night. So I just wanted to sort of get that out there, that idea. If you give me a minute, I can pull up a related story that Sam did. We've been looking at the munitions. I'm not going to say too much about the details right now, but obviously there was a lot of chemical munitions last night. There was a lot of chemicals there, and a lot of people were, trying to understand and document what was up with those chemicals out in Brooklyn Center being thrown around. That's been a major problem. Obviously, a lot of, people have said, hey, like, the stuff is toxic. It can create really weird health effects. A lot of people in Portland had really weird health effects. People last summer, apart from the noise and the other stimuli that are created by the weapons that are used in these type of police tactics, which again, field force operations, you can really, every minute you spend researching this will be valuable if you're interested in this subject. Gotta say that. So hopefully we'll have a little more info about those munitions. But if you give me 1 second, I can pull up another story that we did. One moment. The munitions delivery. So what Sam found, and Sam and I both definitely share an interest in aircraft, right? Like how the government uses aircraft, if you will. And so Sam found that there was a whole delivery network used to basically bring in all these munitions. And so the city, was using tons of munitions on people. They were throwing them all over the place, and here's, for example, info from some of the catalogs. The pepper fog generator, who knows, maybe we'll see one of those soon. But obviously there's been a lot of that out in Portland, and OC, tons of OC so far, which is I can't pronounce it, but oleo, it's the basically refined pepper spray type stuff, is only one of the types of munitions. But Sam was able to track down the whole supply chain, and Sam discovered that the stuff was being brought up directly from Colorado using DNR assets, Department of Natural Resources assets, machinery that they bought, having told the legislature this would be used for forestry and outdoorsy stuff, was actually just being used for supply chains to drop stuff off directly in St. Paul so they could start shooting it at people. So that happened, and Sam traced that. That story was from last December. So, again, we're seeing plenty more munitions getting torqued off in huge quantities again. So that's under the hood how it works. I'll go back a little bit as well. One of our contributors, again, as we look at the history of these things, Mirjan Sadar did a whole series, started working on a whole series, 21st Century Jim Crow in the North Star City, the Target Corporation, stuff like that, how the surveillance grid was built up downtown during the Ryback administration, how prosecutors were paid for by the Target Corporation to, throw the book at people, to essentially further the goals of gentrification of downtown, and treating nuisance crimes and low-grade stuff as if it was some huge threat to public safety. So that is part of the root of all of this, part of the root of why the police in the Twin Cities have gotten so aggressive. And that downtown equation, it's kind of the warped core of it. It's just right in the middle of this whole thing. So Mirjan's, tried to digest this stuff, the Downtown Dark Alliance piece. So take a look at that if you want to learn more. Thanks for tuning in.
Does the state have an additional witness?
Your Honor, the state of Minnesota rests.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson, are you ready to proceed? Call your first witness.
Your Honor, the defense calls Scott Creighton.
Your Honor, prior to the testimony, we request the posture.
Raise your right hand. You swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Have a seat. I have to delay just a little bit. Having trouble getting the computer to work, and there's something I have to read the jury, but you can be seated. All right. Hold on. Let me try and... My apologies.
So if you're just joining, So if you're just joining us, the sidebars are done over radios now because of COVID. So the defendant is allowed to listen to the sidebar. It's not really secret to him. And so the lawyers, the defense, the state use these headsets for that.
Hold on. All right, let's have you give your first, middle, and last name and spell each of your names.
My name is Scott Robbie Creighton, Creighton.
Members of the jury, you are about to hear evidence of an occurrence involving George Floyd on May 6th, 2019. This evidence is being admitted solely for the limited purpose of showing what effects the ingestion of opioids may or may not have had on the physical well-being of George Floyd. This evidence is not to be used as evidence of the character of George Floyd. Mr. Nelson.
Thank you. Mr. Creighton, by whom are you currently employed?
Your Honor, is there any way that we can, I could hear it a little louder? Could it be a little louder? I'm having a difficult head. Sorry about that, sir.
No problem, sir.
I just want to make sure I hear all the questions.
Is that better?
Yes, it is.
Okay. By whom are you currently employed?
Right now, I'm currently retired. I'm not employed by anybody.
Prior to your retirement, by whom were you employed?
The City of Minneapolis Police Department.
And how long did you work for the City of Minneapolis Police Department?
28 years.
Can you describe for the jury generally the various roles that you had for the Minneapolis Police Department?
Yes, I will. I started in 1993. I started on the street working as a 911 responder. I did 6 years as a 911 responder, and then I transferred over to public housing for approximately 9 months as public housing officer. And then from there I went to the 4th Precinct and became a community response team member, involved as a street level narcotics investigator. I did that for 22 years.
All right. Now, were you on duty on May 6th of 2019?
Yes, I was.
If you had an opportunity to review various police reports and body-worn cameras from an incident on that date?
Yes, I have.
On that date at approximately 4 or just before 5 o'clock p.m., did you execute a traffic stop of a red Ford Explorer?
Yes, I did.
And did you approach the passenger side?
Yes, I did.
Can you describe just very briefly the initial interaction that you had with the passenger of that vehicle?
I approached the vehicle on the passenger side. The passenger window was down. I started giving the individual that was in the passenger seat commands several times. The passenger was unresponsive and non-compliant to my commands. I then had to physically reach in because I wanted to see his hands, because I couldn't see his hands. I reached in finally and grabbed his hand to put it up on the dash, and then that individual was taken from the vehicle and handcuffed.
Okay. Did you make any observations as to the passenger's behavior?
Could you repeat that question, sir? I'm sorry.
Did you make any additional observations as to the passenger's behavior?
Yeah, in my mind, his behavior was very nervous, anxious.
I will withdraw that question. In terms of, did you see the passenger do anything physically with his hands?
Yes, he turned away from me towards the driver's seat as I was giving him commands to see his hands.
Did you draw your service weapon?
Yes, I did.
Did you observe the passenger put anything in his mouth?
Can you say that one more time, sir? I'm sorry.
Did you observe the passenger put anything in his mouth?
No, I didn't.
Were you wearing a body-worn camera issued by the city of Minneapolis on that day?
Yes, I was.
And have you had an opportunity to review your body-worn camera prior to today's testimony?
Yes, I have.
Your Honor, based upon the order, I would move to admit and publish Exhibit 1051.
All right. 1051 is received, subject to the motion in limine.
If we may publish.
What are you doing? Can you undo your seatbelt, sir? Sir, passenger, can you undo your seatbelt? Go ahead and undo your seatbelt.
Please, I don't want to get shot.
I don't plan on shooting you. I'm just saying, just take your time.
I ain't never seen him.
Okay, relax. Just undo your seatbelt. Let her take care of her guy. Just keep your hands out where I can see him. Hey! Let me... Keep your hands where I can fucking see him. Okay? Put them up on the dash. Put them on the dash. I'm not going to shoot you. Put your hands on the dash. Put your hands on the dash. The last time I'm going to tell you that. It's simple. He keeps moving his hands around. He won't listen to what I have to say.
Put your hands on
Okay.
top of your head.
Put them on your head.
Top of your head.
Okay, man.
Open your mouth. Spit out what you got. Spit out what you got. I'm going to tase you. Spit it out. He's eating all
Don't you jerk away from me.
Put your hands behind your back.
That was one yellow pill, boss.
Okay, now slowly come on out.
Hand under
Now put your
hand under hat.
Okay, relax then. You're not going to get beat up or nothing. You just follow what we're asking you to do.
I apologize, man. I apologize, man. I apologize.
Yeah.
Your Honor, maybe you have a sidebar.
Did you subsequently identify the driver of the passenger?
Yes, I did.
And who was that?
Mr. Floyd.
Your Honor, based on the court's ruling, I have no further questions for this witness.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Officer Creighton.
Good morning.
You testified that you were the officer who approached the passenger side of the vehicle. You approached George Floyd on May 6th of 2019, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And you had your gun drawn when you approached Mr. Floyd, isn't that right?
Yes, I pulled it, yes.
And when you approached Mr. Floyd, he said, "Don't shoot me, man, I don't want to get shot," right?
Something like that, yes.
You told him to undo his seatbelt, correct?
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
And he did that, right?
Yes, he did.
And then you said, "Put your hands where I can see them," correct?
Yes.
And then he put his hands in the air?
Yes,
And then you told him to put his hands on the dash, is that right?
that's correct.
And that was when you grabbed his hand and forcibly put it on the dashboard of the vehicle, correct?
Fallen, yes.
And then the other officer with you on the other side of the vehicle changed that to put your hands on your head, correct?
That's correct.
And then he put his hands on his head, right?
That's correct, yes.
And there was one officer who said that they were going to tase him, right?
That's what I heard, yes.
And you were yelling pretty loud, correct?
Yes, I was, yes. It escalated real quick.
Some profanity as well, correct?
Yes,
And you had your gun drawn the whole time you were giving commands, right?
once I started ordering him and he refused to show me his hands, yes, eventually it escalated where I pulled my gun, yes, ma'am.
And he was awake, correct?
What's that, ma'am?
Mr. Floyd was awake. Was he awake during this incident?
Yes,
He was conscious?
yes,
He didn't appear to be in medical distress to you when you were pulling him out of the car, is that right? He was talking to you, he was standing up, is that right?
I don't know if it was specifically, sometimes he was talking, sometimes he was mumbling. He was incoherent in my mind a lot of the time during there.
But you got him out of the car and you handcuffed him, right?
That's correct, ma'am.
And he stood next to the car, right?
Yes, ma'am.
He asked you not to beat him up, correct?
That's correct, yes.
He was able to walk, right?
Yes, he was.
He continued to talk to you.
Yes.
Technology is not our friend today. Ms. Aldridge, if you would.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Creighton, you were describing that you got Mr. Floyd out of the car, correct?
Yes.
And he stood next to the car and you handcuffed him, correct?
Me and another officer had to physically handcuff him, yes.
And he didn't fall down, correct?
No, he didn't fall down.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything further?
Very briefly.
Officer Creighton, there was another officer on the driver's side dealing with the driver,
Yes, that's correct, actually two.
and that officer was speaking to or giving commands to the driver
That's correct.
simultaneous to the time that you were giving commands to Mr. Floyd.
That's correct.
Did you hear the officer say, "Spit it out"?
I may have, yes. You'd have to see the video, and if that's what the video shows, then that's what occurred.
Okay. I have no further questions.
All right, anything further?
Briefly, Your Honor. Officer Creighton, you were just asked some questions about what the other officers were doing. You were interacting with Mr. Floyd, correct?
Yes,
And while you were interacting with Mr. Floyd, he didn't collapse on the ground, correct?
wait a minute. What was the question? Can you speak up a little louder, ma'am?
While you were interacting with Mr. Floyd, he didn't collapse on the ground, correct?
No, he did not.
Well, the answer is stricken. The objection is sustained.
You were asked some questions about what the other officers were doing, correct?
That's correct.
Your attention was focused on Mr. Floyd, correct?
Yes, it was.
And Mr. Floyd didn't drop dead while you were interacting with him, correct?
No.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, at this time, the defense calls Michelle Mosing.
You can just stand right there for a second. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth? Have a seat. And before you begin, if you could state your full name, spell each of your names, and then hold off, Mr. Nelson. Just give your full name and spell each name.
First name is Michelle, Michelle. Last name is Mosing, Moseng.
And if you're comfortable taking off the mask, I pretty much leave it up to you, but if that would make it easier to hear you, that would be appreciated. Members of the jury, this again is regarding an incident or an occurrence involving George Floyd on May 6, 2019. As I told you before, this evidence is being admitted solely for the limited purpose of showing what effects the ingestion of opioids may or may not have had on the physical well-being of George Floyd. This evidence is not to be used as evidence of the character of George Floyd. Mr. Nelson, you may inquire.
Thank you. Good morning, ma'am.
Morning.
By whom are you currently employed?
I am retired.
Okay. Prior to your retirement, where were you employed?
I was a paramedic at Hennepin County Medical Center, EMS.
How long were you a paramedic for Hennepin County?
Just under 34 years.
Okay. And can you describe the education that you had to become a paramedic?
I have a 2-year degree in emergency medical care and rescue from Mankato State, and then actually got an additional registered nursing. Graduated from St. Mary's University in '91.
Okay. And so you worked as a paramedic for Hennepin County for the entirety of your career, or did you have other employment?
I actually worked for a year in Dakota County for 1 year, and then I have worked at Hennepin, or had worked at Hennepin ever since.
Fair to say you've gone to a large number of calls during the course of your career.
Yes.
All right. And you may not remember every specific detail about every call, correct?
No.
And as a paramedic, do you maintain records about each call that you go to in order to assess the patient's care?
Yes, we do a run sheet or a patient medical record that we hand off
Okay.
at the emergency room.
Now,
If you can just speak up just a little bit.
Sorry.
No problem. Don't worry about it.
prior to your testimony today, have you had an opportunity to review a run sheet from May 6th of 2019 involving George Perry Floyd?
Yes.
Do you recall all of those details off the top of your head now?
No.
All right. Now, in terms of your recollection of May 6th of 2019, were you summoned to the Minneapolis Police Department
Yes, precinct 4.
to attend to Mr. Floyd?
Yes.
Upon arriving at the 4th precinct, did you talk to Mr. Floyd?
Yes.
Did you learn information from Mr. Floyd about what he had consumed and the time frame he had consumed it in?
Yeah, it was quite hard to assess him. He was upset and confused. Some of the things he said were...
I'm going to strike the answer as non-responsive. If you could perhaps leave.
Certainly. Did Mr. Floyd, were you able to learn that Mr. Floyd had consumed some narcotics that day?
Yes.
What did he tell you specifically about what narcotics he had taken and when he had taken them?
He told me that he had been taking multiple, like every 20 minutes. And it was I don't remember if it was Oxy or Percocet, but it was a opioid based. It wasn't real consistent with his behavior. At that point, it was real elevated and agitated.
No, I'm gonna.
The last statement about agitation is stricken as non-responsive. You can just wait for the next question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But he had informed you he had taken some sort of an opioid every 20 minutes or something like that, correct?
And then another one as the officer came up.
Okay, so he told you that he had taken a pill at the time the officers were apprehending him.
Correct.
Did you do a physical assessment of Mr. Floyd at that time?
Yes.
Specifically, did you take his blood pressure?
Yes, I took a set of vitals.
Would you agree that your first vitals were taken at approximately 1:34 and 59 seconds?
Without looking at the run sheet, I wouldn't know for sure.
Would it refresh your recollection to review the run sheet?
Yes.
May I approach the witness room?
Thank you. I've written on here that, yeah, it was 1334 was the first recorded vital signs.
That refreshes your recollection?
Yes. Did you need it back?
I'd like to testify from memory. If you need to refresh your memory with that, just let us know and we'll allow you to refresh your memory. But otherwise, testify to your memory as best you can.
Okay.
Thank you.
At approximately 13:34, that's 1:34 p.m., agreed? You took his vitals, correct?
Correct.
And that would include his blood pressure at the time?
Yes.
And did you record what his blood pressure was at that time?
Yes, it was 216 over 160.
Did you ultimately make recommendations to transport Mr. Floyd to the hospital?
Based on that and other issues.
Okay. And ultimately, was he brought to the hospital?
Eventually.
All right. I believe that's all I have, Your Honor.
Ms. Eldridge.
Good morning, Ms. Mosing.
Good morning.
You provided treatment to George Floyd on May 6, 2019, correct?
Correct.
Is that
Yes.
right? And you were concerned about his blood pressure at that time, correct?
That was one of the things.
And in the course of your treatment of him, he explained that his high blood pressure wasn't something new, right?
Yeah, initially, he denied medical issues, but then when I discovered his blood pressure, I specifically asked again, and he said yes, he had history of hypertension and had not been taking his medication.
And he said he hadn't been taking his blood pressure medication for months, correct?
Correct.
And he told you that he swallowed some pills, right?
Yes.
Approximately 7 Percocet, correct?
I documented, 7 to 9 every 20 minutes or so for a while.
And Percocet is a brand name, right?
Yes.
Is that oxycodone and acetaminophen?
Yes.
And it's used to treat pain, correct?
Correct.
You testified that it's an opioid, yes?
Correct.
So he told you that he had been taking those pills throughout the day, right?
Yes, and I asked him why. He said he's because he was addicted.
He told you he was addicted, and he responded to your questions about taking the pills, correct?
Correct.
And he was able to walk, correct?
Yes.
He was able to stand up.
Correct.
And you wanted him to go to the hospital, right?
Correct.
And he didn't feel like he wanted to go to the hospital, correct? He was resistant to going to the hospital, right?
I know he was real resistant to get on our bed. It was hard to tell exactly what he was upset about.
I'm going to object at this point.
I'm sorry.
Just with respect to going to the hospital, Your Honor.
Yes.
I'm going to limit your question, the question I asked to that. He didn't want to go to the hospital, right?
I'll say yes.
It took some time to convince him to go to the hospital,
Yes.
correct? And you indicated that he told you he had been addicted to opioids, correct?
Correct.
And he had been addicted to opioids at that point for 1.5 years, right?
I am not aware of that.
But he didn't feel like he needed to go to the hospital.
He didn't want to go with us at that point.
And you were referred to your run report, right? The record that you keep in terms of the treatment of patients. You see that up there, correct?
Yes.
And according to your run report, you documented that Mr. Floyd was alert, correct?
Yes.
And that he obeyed commands, correct?
Eventually.
That's what's in your report, right? Correct?
Correct.
And that he had an appropriate response to stimulation.
Correct.
Yes?
Correct.
He wasn't nauseous or vomiting when you were treating him, right?
No.
His respiratory rate was normal. Yes?
It was elevated at times.
You wrote respiratory effort normal in your report, correct?
At the beginning, yes. His effort was normal. It was increased at times.
And throughout your documentation, you wrote respiratory effort normal, correct?
Correct.
At 1334, at 1409, at 1426. All those notes, you indicated that his respiratory effort was normal, correct?
Correct.
He was not in respiratory distress, correct?
No.
His blood oxygen level was normal, right?
Correct.
His pulse was normal, correct?
Yes.
His heart rhythm was regular or normal, right?
Correct.
His EKG was normal.
Correct.
He had a normal rhythm, the sinus rhythm, which is the rhythm of a normal, healthy heart, correct?
Correct.
And you indicated that you had been worried about high blood pressure for the possibility of a stroke, right?
Among other things, yes.
But he didn't have a stroke, right?
Didn't have any indications that we were picking up at the time.
He didn't have a stroke while you were with him.
No.
He was never given Narcan, correct?
Correct.
He didn't stop breathing.
No.
His heart didn't stop.
No.
He didn't go into cardiac arrest.
No.
He didn't go into a coma.
No.
And you took him to the hospital, correct?
Correct.
And he was monitored for 2 hours and released right after, right?
I don't know.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may step down. Sure. Members of the jury, we're going to take a lawyerly 5-minute break, which means it'll probably be 10. But let's go with 5 minutes for now. Thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. This is Dan at Unicorn Riot. So we've been hearing from the defense's case. There was a police officer named Scott Creighton and then this paramedic. And I think they were both describing the 2019 traffic stop. And so what we saw in the motions before the jury phase started was there was arguments about this traffic stop. A lot of stuff came up about this traffic stop during that earlier phase of this trial, and you can see why. You know, what the defense attorney is counting on is sort of trying to make it seem like Derek Chauvin's victim was messed up on drugs or whatever, and then they had the attempt to paint that as being more likely that it wasn't Chauvin's fault, right? Like the aim here is to somehow say it's not Chauvin's fault because of going over this 2019 traffic stop. So obviously that last witness was a little strange. Both these witnesses have been strange, but that's what you get in court. So again, I'll just go over the players here. If you're just tuning in, you haven't seen these folks. And again, we saw a video that someone else took of Keith Ellison last night. Ellison was out there in Brooklyn Center. Other people for this, so Ellison hasn't really been giving arguments, but he's been around the courtroom a fair bit. Matthew Frank is one of these attorneys for the state. Neil Katyal made arguments earlier in that earlier phase. Steve Slisher makes a lot of arguments. Jerry Blackwell, I think he was up a lot yesterday. Joshua Larson. You were just hearing Aaron Eldridge for the state as well. And Christina Marinkaki and Sundip Iyer are also state attorneys. So you do see Amy Voss in there every day. She sits behind Eric Nelson, who is obviously the lead defense attorney in this case. Peter Cahill is the judge, and Derek Chauvin is the defendant in the Hennepin County District Court. And, Hennepin County was under a curfew until 6 a.m. this morning, along with Anoka, Ramsey, Dakota County. More than 2 million Minneapolis residents were under curfew for reasons related to this trial. So while this trial has been happening in this little room, all this stuff obviously has been going on outside as well. There's a question, how many witnesses does the defense intend to call? We might be able to get some more about that. It's possible the pool reporters have a better idea. So we might be able to find out more about that. I don't have a good answer right now. How is Eric Nelson selected as Chauvin's lawyer? Eric Nelson is among the lawyers that do work of this nature in the Twin Cities. And he's just sort of near to the other related lawyers. I think that is the short answer I would give. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to run a few... Let's see. Sorry, 1 second. I was pulling down videos from our huge live stream last night, so I'm just going to, while we're waiting, I guess, head over to some clips that we have from the situation with Dante Wright in Brooklyn Center, and we're going to run Sunday clips, and then I will fill it in with more material from the live stream on Monday. So thanks all for joining us, and we do really appreciate your support. Nico made it out okay, and it was tough, and the weather conditions were bad. The weather was dropping into the high 30s and all that rain, so that definitely dispersed a lot of people. So yeah, personally, I try not to give my opinion too much. I don't have too much opinion about what's going on so far this morning. It's just, court is always weird. It's not like television, it's a real court, I guess. So thanks for joining us. We're going to stick with this. Thank you all.
our son, and this is taken away from that, because now this is exactly what they want you guys to do, so that way my son isn't being heard. And I need that to, this is my husband.
Your son's being heard, sis. Your son's being heard.
This shit don't stop.
Your son's being heard. We're not playing about no baby.
Justice for Dante, that's it.
Period.
We don't want all this extra. Let's get justice. We'll get justice for my son.
Justice for Dante.
Justice for Dante. Justice for Dante. Justice for my son, Dante. That's what we want. Justice for him being shot for no reason at all. On his way, he was on his way to get a car wash.
That's what happened.
He was on his way to get a car wash. He was pulled over because he had air fresheners in the rearview mirror.
Car wash? How many of us get a car wash with air fresheners? We all do. Right? They even do on their police cars. How dare they?
But I need you guys to, all the violence, if it keeps going, it's only going to be about the violence. You need it to be about why my son got shot for no reason. We need to make sure that it's about him, not about smashing police cars, because that's not going to bring my son back.
You got that right. Just like you just saw on TV, that young lieutenant that was harassed by the police. You know, I served 13 years in the military, special forces. So, you know, I feel the same way, you know. I served over at least 13 tours in Iraq, Afghanistan, all over the world, just to come back and still be harassed by the same system that I fought for. So, you know, I have every right to be out here, and that's what makes us grow stronger and more angrier. Like, we try to abide by, but you don't give us no room to, so here we are.
How do you feel like change can happen, and how does that come about if you do?
Change will happen, and then this is it right here. This is us unifying, being together. You see, we peaceful. We're not doing nothing wrong. We're standing here. The only ones that are not being peaceful are them right now. They're forcing up with the sticks. You don't see no weapons on none of us. We have no weapons. We have no guns, no mace, no nothing. The only way we can find peace is if the system changes. We've already recognized what the problem is, and it's the system.
You can't take my motherfucking right away, bitch. I'm a taxpayer. I don't have no proof.
God damn, just shot off my fucking foot. Oh fuck, man. Here goes. Woo! They just threw off a bunch. They're throwing off another one.
We're in the middle of an uprising. And I need everyone here now for this family and for every other family, because there are going to be some more casualties. They're telling us they're coming after us. There are going to be more casualties until we change it. So this is an uprising. You're in it now. You can't leave here and be innocent. So let's go back. Go back and tell your families. Go back and tell your neighbors. Go back. We're not going to sit down. We're getting up until all of our children can walk free. And we don't have to call their names in lament anymore, but only in celebration. This is an uprising, and you're in it now. Go back, go back, go back, and let everybody know. May it be so. God bless you. Be safe.
So the family does request that you guys give them space at this time. So we're going to respect that.
Right on time. I see you.
Space at this time.
Yeah. Stay right on time.
I want us to just have a moment of silence for Dante.
Love you. Love you.
Dante's favorite number is 23. So as you guys have your candles or the candles are being passed out for 23 seconds, we're just gonna have a moment of silence for Dante. His favorite number was 23. And then we'll go ahead and start at the 23 seconds. Thank you. Thank you for coming. The family wants their space. They invite everyone to come meet us
Just to reiterate, everyone, the official vigilant action here is over. The family would request that you give them space. Please make your way to your vehicles or your homes or whatever good trouble you choose to get into this evening. Please be safe. Once again, everyone, please give the family space. The vigil is over. Easy, folks. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot.
We're at the tail end of this vigil. We'll catch it for you. What we've missed is some pastors speaking and a few other things. People just got the curfew warning on their phones. 7 p.m. curfew here in Brooklyn Center. You see the fist. We're going to go over there and check it out in a second. You hear the crowd. There's crowds of thousands here. Try to get you some
Please take a few steps back from the sound van. Please clear up from the sound van. We do need to depart. Thank you. Everyone again, please be safe.
You see a massive crowd. Bring you over to this fist. How you doing? You all got flowers? You want to talk about it? We're here with Visual Black Justice. Can you talk about what's going on right now?
Yeah, so we always bring flowers to respect the family. So we did a community source donation, and we got over 25 different locations to donate flowers, and we're giving to.
All right, we're on the record outside the hearing of the jury.
This is live. We're back now.
Hey man, come on up. All right, you can just have a seat for now. If you testify, I'll place you under oath, but otherwise, we're just going to have a discussion a little bit here, so, but we do need to hear you so that the court reporter can take everything down. So, you have been subpoenaed by the defense.
I can't even really hear you.
Let me do that. You've been subpoenaed by the defense to answer certain questions about being with George Floyd on May 25th, 2020, what you observed about his physical condition at various points in Cup Foods, and basically a time frame on when you were with him that day and what you observed about him. Specifically, I think focusing mostly on the time in Cup Foods, but then also in the motor vehicle before the police came to the window.
Yep.
Okay? And you're willing to answer those questions about George Floyd? Okay. The parties also have the right to ask you, in order to test whether your perceptions are accurate, on whether you were under the influence of drugs or alcohol that day. Are you willing to answer that question?
Yes.
Okay.
Am I or him?
Are you willing to answer the question whether you were under the influence of drugs or alcohol?
Yes, I was not.
Okay. We're not going to be eliciting an opinion from you whether George Floyd was under the influence, just for how he looked.
Okay.
And how he acted.
Yep.
But not an opinion about whether he was under the influence.
Okay.
But the lawyers, in order to make sure that the jury knows whether to consider your evidence and how much weight to give it, is whether you were sober or under the influence. Are you willing to answer that question?
Yes.
Okay. Now you understand, I don't find that those questions would expose you to criminal liability, but you do have a Fifth Amendment right not to incriminate yourself. Do you need time to talk to a lawyer? Or?
No.
And I have limited the lawyers to those topics so as not to get anything that might tend to incriminate you that you're not expecting. Okay?
Yep.
Do you have any questions?
No.
Do you need time to talk to a lawyer? Okay, ready to go then?
Yes.
All right. What we're going to do is we're going to bring the jury back in, and then I'm going to have you stand up so I can swear you in, and then we'll go from there. Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, great. Let's bring in the jury. And you can just remain seated when the jury comes in.
Oh, you want to stand up?
You can stay seated.
Oh.
I'll ask you to stand to be sworn, but just follow my directions, you'll be fine.
All right.
You can stay seated. All right, Mr. Nelson, you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense calls Shawanda Hill.
Ms. Hill, if you could stand right in the witness chair, or actually, there's fine. If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, have a seat, please. And before we begin, we're going to have you state your full name, spelling each of your names.
Shawanda, Shawanda, Renee, Renee, Hill, Hill.
Mr. Nelson?
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Hill.
Hi.
Thank you for being here with us today. I just have a few questions about May 25th of 2020. Do you recall that date?
Yes.
On that date, were you at the Cup Foods located in Minneapolis?
Yes.
Yes. Did you run into anybody that you knew while you were there?
Yes, George Floyd.
And while you were at the Cup Foods, or in the Cup Foods, did you have an opportunity to observe Mr. Floyd's behavior, demeanor, things of that nature?
Yes.
How would you describe Mr. Floyd's behavior while inside of the Cup Foods?
Happy, normal, talking, alert.
Okay. Did he offer to give you a ride?
Yes.
A ride to wherever it was
My
you were
house.
going? Okay. And so did you go to his car with him?
Yes.
Once you got into the car, did you observe any changes to his demeanor?
When we were in the car for the first 8 minutes, we were talking and, hugging, talking about what we were about to do. And then I got a phone call. And so I was on the phone for the rest of the time until the little boys came to the car. He fell asleep at that time.
So at some point during the course of the time that you were in the car with Mr. Floyd Floyd suddenly fell asleep,
Yes.
right? And the phone call you received, was that from your daughter?
Yes.
And so you were talking with your daughter during that time?
Yes.
And you described, would you agree that at some point, you said some little boys, are those employees of the
Yes.
store?
Sorry, yes.
That's okay. The store employees came and approached the car, correct?
Yes.
And at that point, Mr. Floyd suddenly fell asleep?
He was already asleep.
He was already sleeping?
Yes. When they came to the car. And when they came there, I tried to wake him up. They tried to wake him up. I tried to wake him up over and over. And his friend tried to wake him up. And he woke up. Then he'll say something. He made a little gesture, and nodded back off.
Okay.
He did that a couple times.
Was that a kind of a sudden change from how you observed him in the store to the car?
Yes, but he already told me in the store he was tired because he had been working.
I'm going to object. There is an objection.
Hold on. Objection, grounds?
Leading, yes, the answer is stricken.
Overruled.
And so at some point, did the store clerks leave the side of the car?
Yes, I told him that I would wake him up and send him in there because I didn't have the money on me. I used my money. So.
Okay. And did you continue to try to rouse
Yes.
Mr. Floyd?
Wait till he finishes the question so that we don't overlap. Okay? Because the court reporter is taking everything down. It's really hard if you overlap.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Thanks.
Thank you. So did you continue to try to awaken Mr. Floyd?
Yes, I tried a couple times, but then, I just let it go for a minute because I was back on the phone and
All right.
you want to hear the rest of it.
And did the store clerks come back to the car a second time?
No.
And were you at some point the police officers approached the car?
Yes.
And Mr. Floyd was aroused by the police?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Rank.
Good morning, Ms. Hill. I just have a couple of follow-up questions for you, okay?
Yes.
So during the period that you were with Mr. Floyd in the store, he was, you said he was alert?
Yes.
Friendly?
Yes.
Talkative?
Happy talking, yes.
And
hugging.
Yeah. And when you went out to the store, he walked by himself out to the store?
Yes.
In fact, did a little dance as he went out to the
Yes.
car? We just have to make sure that you wait till the question's done so we aren't talking over each other, okay? I know it's a hard habit to break, but we just have to be careful with that, okay? And when you got back to the car, at some point he nodded off.
Yes.
But you were able to wake him, correct?
Yes.
And talk to him?
Yes. But he wasn't that coherent at the time.
He was just awakening.
Yes.
And nodded off again?
Yes.
And at some point the police officers walked up, correct? Said yes?
Yes.
And then he, you woke him up when the police officers walked up, correct?
Yes.
And so then he was awake.
Yes. You just want me to say yes or no, explain what you want me to do.
Well, explain.
I want to explain. Okay, thank you. So when I tried to wake him up, he woke up the second time. I said, Floyd, the police is here. It's about the $20 bill wasn't real. I kept saying, baby, get up. The police was out. So he looked, and we looked to the right, and he had the police. He tapped on the window with a flashlight. And I'm like, Floyd. And so he turned back around again. He's like, what? And I was like, baby, that's the police. Open the door, roll down the window, whatever he told me to do. So he looked back, and when he seen the man had the gun at the window when we looked back to him. So he instantly grabbed the wheel, and he was like, please don't kill me. Please don't shoot me. What did I do? Just tell me what I did. Please don't kill me. Please don't shoot me. And I'm like, Floyd, baby, it's not. You said explain. I'm trying to explain what state he was in, sir.
I did. And I have to ask some questions. So I'm sorry to cut you off. I really am.
It's all right.
But I want to go back and just cover one thing quick, because where were you sitting in the vehicle?
In the back right passenger seat.
Okay. And so when officers came...
Back passenger seat.
Were there two officers that came to the vehicle?
Yes.
So one came to the passenger side and one to the driver's side?
Yes.
So initially you saw one officer to your right on the passenger side, correct?
No, I was up like I'm trying to wake him up, so I'm in the middle, like at the time, when the police were there. That's how I was able to see him too, just we both looked at the same time.
And when he was, during this time period, coming out from Cup Foods and being in the vehicle, did he complain of shortness of breath at all?
No.
Did he complain of chest pains at all?
No.
And other than being sleepy or nodding off a little bit, did he seem abnormal to you in any way?
Not at all.
And did he seem startled when the officer pulled a gun on him?
Very.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you. While you were in the car, or prior to getting in the car, Mr. Floyd appeared to you to be normal, correct?
Yes.
When he got in the car, he fell asleep, correct?
We talked for a while, then he fell asleep.
And then ultimately, you had to make several efforts to try to wake him up.
Yes.
I have nothing further.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. We appreciate you coming in. You are excused.
Thank you.
questions, you can go right out the doors.
Your Honor, the defense calls Peter Chang.
Raise your hand. You swear or
I just want to mention
penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Have a seat, please. And before you begin, if you could give us your full name, spelling each of your names.
Peter Chang. First name is Peter, P-E-T-E-R. Last name is Chang, C-H-A-N-G.
Mr. Nelson.
Thank you. Mr. Chang, by whom are you currently employed?
I'm employed with the Minneapolis Park Police.
Are you a licensed peace officer?
Yes.
Could you please describe the training and experience that you have to the jury?
Training, I went through the Minneapolis Police Academy. Prior to that, I did skills for a metropolitan state. Passed my skills, I went to Police Academy through Minneapolis. After passing the, academy, I went through a FTO phase.
Is that field training?
Yes.
Okay.
And that consists of 5 months. After passing that, I went on the street.
Okay. And you have you spent your entire law enforcement career with the Minneapolis Park Police Department?
Yes.
And how long have you been a licensed peace officer?
About to be my 4th year in August.
Were you on duty back on May 25th of 2020 in your capacity as a patrol officer for the Park Police?
Yes.
And did you ultimately respond to a call at approximately 8 o'clock p.m. to the Cup Foods store?
Yes.
And can you describe for the jury how it is that you became a part of this incident?
I was stationed at a park close by. I heard 320 called out that they were taking out one, I believe, and then I heard a lot of background noises, and I heard dispatch asking for assistance. I was one of the closer squads, so I self-assigned to that call to assist 320.
Now, let me ask you, is it common for Minneapolis Park Police to assist on calls with the Minneapolis Police Department?
Yes.
Okay. Your jurisdiction generally is within the parks?
Yes.
However, you are able to back up or assist officers with the Minneapolis Police Department, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Let me ask you one quick question about your experience. You said that you went to the Minneapolis Police Academy, right?
Yes.
Even though you were looking to become a Minneapolis Park Police officer?
Yes.
Do the Park Police and the Minneapolis Police Department, you have the same academy?
Yes. Yes, we do.
Do you have the same field training process?
I believe so, yes.
And then do you participate in continuing education in service as a police officer?
Yes, we do.
Is that also in conjunction with the Minneapolis Police Department?
Yes.
All right. Now, after you, so you responded to the Cup Foods location?
Yes.
And can you describe for the jury initially what you observed and what you did?
When I got there, I initially stopped in front of Cup Foods, and I observed the two officers, 320, across the street. So I drove my squad across the street and parked. I got out of my car, 320. One officer stated they were code 4. I guess got out of the car. I observed, I believe, Officer Kane with one of the individual who I later identified was Floyd. Floyd was in handcuffs, sitting on the ground, leaning against the wall, and Officer Lane was with 2 individuals by the car.
Now, let me ask you quickly, did you know either Officers King or Lane prior to this incident?
No.
Okay. Now, were you asked to do something at that point?
Once I got out of my car, Officer Kane asked me to identify Floyd in our system. So I just went back to my squad car and identified Floyd.
All right. And what happened next, sir?
Once I was in my car identifying Floyd, I observed Officer Lane and Kane I guess assisting Floyd towards their car, which was in front of Cup Foods.
Now, can you describe where that would be Squad 320, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And can you describe where Squad 320 was parked and where you were parked?
320 was parked in front of Cup Foods. They were on the northbound lane facing southbound. And then I was basically across the street on 38th. I believe the front of my squad car was facing eastbound on 38th towards Dragon Walk. Yeah.
Did you then move your squad car?
Yes, once I identified Floyd, I looped, because I observed Officer Lane and Kane assisting Floyd to their squad car. I looped my squad car around and parked in front of their car, their squad car.
So your cars were sort of nose to nose?
Yes.
At an angle though, right?
Yes.
All right. What happened next?
After that, I got on my squad car. I observed Officer Kane and Lane, I guess, pinning Floyd against the squad car, so I wanted to go assist. But once I approached them, Officer Lane told me to go watch the car, and I did that.
And you did that?
Yes.
And then were you, where did you go in relation to the car?
The car was parked on 38th Street, so I basically went across the street to the car.
Okay. And what did you do then?
When I approached the car, I observed the 2 individuals that initially when I arrived, I saw Officer Lane with, I guess, reaching inside the car. And I basically just told them to back away from the car, not reach inside or get anything from the car.
So you were monitoring what the 2 passengers were doing at that time?
Yes.
Was your attention focused on what Officers King and Lane were doing, or was it focused on what the passengers were doing?
It was more focused on the vehicle and the 2 passengers.
Okay. Now, at some point, did you observe another squad car arrive?
Yes.
And can you describe that interaction that you had with those officers?
I believe that was Squad 330. They arrived coming westbound on 38th. They parked in front of the SUV, and I basically just directed them towards 320, which they were in front of Cup Foods.
Okay. Did you know the officers, either of the officers in Squad 320?
No.
Excuse me, 330.
I'm sorry?
330, not 320.
No, I probably met Officer Tao a couple times, but no relationship.
Okay. And you'd never met Officer Chauvin prior to that?
No.
All right. Now, what happened next?
Basically went across the street, and then I assisted 320. And again, my main focus was just the car and the 2 individuals.
And as Mr. Floyd and the officers were across the street, did you notice any changes in the area?
Yeah, as there was a crowd, and I guess the crowd was becoming more loud and aggressive. A lot of yelling across the street.
Did that cause you any concern?
Concern for the officer's safety, yes.
Did you go over to try to help them?
No, because I guess my job was to watch the car and the two individuals that were by the car.
Did you know whether the car had been searched at all by officers?
At that time, no.
Were you concerned about that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I am assuming that on this day you were in a uniform similar to what a Minneapolis police officer would wear?
Yes.
So you were fully uniformed?
Yes.
With all of the duty belt and all of the things that are on the duty belt, right?
Yes.
You were driving a marked squad car?
Yes.
And does your department require you to wear a body-worn camera?
Yes.
Was your body-worn camera active and recording this event?
Yes.
Now, have you had an opportunity at this point to review the footage that was taken by your body-worn camera?
I have.
And does that appear to be a fair and accurate representation of the things you observed?
Yes.
Now, in terms of as the crowd or the group of people were congregating around Squad 320, did you notice anything in terms of the tone or tenor of the voices of those people?
They were very aggressive. Yes. Aggressive towards the officers, yes.
Did the volume increase?
Yes.
And so how were you reacting? How were you splitting? How are you reacting to that?
Yes, I was focused on the car, but then it distracts me, and I was concerned for the officer's safety too, so I just kept an eye on the officers and the car and the individuals, passengers.
And if we can just show I'm going to show a couple of parts of your body-worn camera. And if you just look at the screen in front of you, does this appear to be your body-worn camera?
Yes.
And I note at the top right-hand corner here, there is a date. What is the date?
May 26th.
Of 2020?
Yes.
And I notice a time here of 1:10:25Z. Do you know what that means?
I do not.
Okay. Are you familiar with Greenwich Mean Time?
No.
Oh, okay. So you don't know why the timestamp, you said you were, what time would you originally estimate that you were dispatched to this call, or that you were assigned to this call?
I'll say approximately 8 o'clock.
Okay. Obviously, there's a time difference here that says 1:10 p.m. And you have no idea why that would be.
No.
Now, but it does appear to be your body-worn camera from that day?
Yes.
The same thing that you've observed before?
Yes.
All right. Then, Your Honor, I would move to admit Exhibit 1054.
Subject to the court's prior rulings, 1054 is received.
So we're going to watch about 3 minutes of your body camera here. Permission to publish?
ID on you? I got one at home. All right, what's your name?
George. George Perry Floyd. I don't know what's going on.
I just came over to get my phone.
Spell it for me. Yep.
R-G-E.
Last name?
Floyd.
That's not it.
330 on all F-L-O-Y-D.
Because he's been shot before.
Date of birth.
October 14th.
October 14th?
73. Man, I got shot last time. Same late, man.
His name?
Nothing, man.
George Floyd.
I don't want no Bible. Ain't nothing.
Now, Officer Chang, does that represent that initial interaction that you had with officers King, Lane, Mr. Floyd, and the passengers of the vehicle?
Yes.
All right. And did you then, in fact, use your computer to enter in the name of George Floyd?
Yes.
All right. And after you did that, what happened next?
Again, I observed Officer Lane and Kane assist George Floyd to their squad car, which was in front of Cup Foods. So I looped my squad car around so I could be closer, and I got out of the car, and again, I observed Officer Lane and Kane pinning Floyd against their squad car, so I went to assist, but once I approached them, Officer Lane told me to go watch the car.
All right. I'm going to, if we could take this down, Your Honor. And in front of you, Officer, I'm again showing you part of your body camera footage.
Yes.
And it appears to be the same date, after you've run the information and looped the car around.
Yes.
And does this video accurately reflect what you saw and saw that day?
Yes.
I would move, Your Honor, for the admission of Exhibit 1055, which is an approximately 24-minute part of Mr. Chang's body camera.
Subject to the court's prior rulings, 1055 is received.
Permission to publish?
You may.
Can you watch that car? Just make sure no
Okay.
one's in it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want you guys grabbing anything from the car, okay? Leave the car alone. Leave the car alone.
Yes, sir.
All right, now.
He just got sick. There's his phone.
All right. Just leave the car alone.
Okay.
2740 minimum.
How you doing, Al?
Good. Good. Did you guys take out the car?
Get cigarettes.
Cigarettes? You got your personal items?
This is mine. I had it in my hand. This is my phone.
Okay.
His phone in there.
Whose car is this?
That's his friend's car, a female name. I was trying to think of the girl name.
Okay.
Yeah. It's his friend's car. Damn, man.
Who is he to you guys?
Silver.
That's my ex.
Your ex. Okay.
And I just seen him in the store, so he was going to give me a ride home.
Okay.
I just came to get my phone fixed.
He was giving her and I a ride.
even her and I trying to get us a ride.
Okay. Just stay put, all right? I don't want anybody near his car.
Is anybody gonna check my name? Because my daughter on her way here to get me.
All right, where's the ID?
I don't have it. I gave her my
All right,
name.
why don't you stand right there, okay?
They know who gave them the money. It wasn't us.
Okay.
320 to your visa.
Did you guys give my partners their names or no?
Yeah. Yeah, we already did.
You guys did? Okay. Did he write it down?
Yep.
You wrote down everything? Okay, stay put, all right? Let's see what my partner does.
Damn, he still won't get in the car. Just sit down, dude. Dude, they gotta push him in this car. Look, he's fighting to get out.
That's fucking resistance.
What is he doing? Now he going to jail. All he had to do was now the nigga going to jail. Can y'all give him his phone though, please?
We'll see what happens, all right? You guys just stay put. Tell my partners to come back here.
Look, they still fighting. Hey. Oh man, what is he doing?
Oh, they going all around.
Can you continue over there?
Alright, I need to leave. You got a lighter?
I had one.
You guys don't have your IDs on you?
I already gave him one, man.
Huh?
I gave it to him, man.
Why don't I see your ID again?
I gave it to him.
He has your ID?
Yeah.
And I gave him my name because I didn't even
Okay.
get a purse or nothing.
All right, well,
came to
just
get
stay
my
put here,
phone
okay?
paid. I know one damn thing. Y'all better go ask Mike because it wasn't us.
Okay. Let's stay further back there, okay?
Huh?
Let's stay further back. What's her name's?
Her name's Shawanda.
Shawanda? What's yours? What's your name?
William Ricardo, sir.
What is it?
William Ricardo.
Ricardo.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, man.
320, can we get emails to go to jail for laying in the mouth?
You can ask Mr. Adam about me. I just did some business with him, man.
Okay, well, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
My daughter. They gave me some too. I tore that shit up.
Give you some what?
Fake money, man.
Who gave it to you?
Told me somebody, I don't know, whoever the fuck asked for change or something. Get some fuck that. See where the man told me, hey, that's fake. All right, cool. You see mine? I tore this shit up right there. And he came out and started telling that dude, yeah. And I told him, the dude told him. And he told him to come back in the pub, come back in the store.
But he
so
was
he was
talking.
trying to figure it out.
Yeah, he was like, what the fuck? Why would where I'm gonna get some fake money from?
If I could ever choose this cell, 2114 has been a priority property damage possibly intoxicated and possibly
So Ricardo, how are you related to Floyd? How you know him?
He used to do security work at the Salvation Army, man.
How do you know him?
I don't know him. I'm telling you now, right there.
Okay.
Security work.
So how are you guys together then?
We was getting a ride.
Yeah.
Now we getting.
Oh, okay, so you two are together.
No, I seen him in the store too, but that's my ex. You know
Okay.
what I'm saying?
How do you two know each other? How do you not know him when he said he's with you?
No, he was getting a ride from him too, and he told me, come on, he'll give me a ride.
Okay. Just stay put then.
I don't need it because my daughter does.
All right, that's good.
Is this her right here?
I'll stay put, all right?
Yeah, because he was fighting. Yeah, because he over there fighting.
He's making it more difficult.
Right. Damn, that's...
He's making it more difficult.
I know. I think he got shot. Because he was falling asleep a little bit, and then when he woke up, they was up at the door. How you doing? Yeah, and then he started saying, please don't shoot me. Right. That's why I had my hands showing.
Officer, do you see the individual on the left hand walking by?
Oh, yes.
You had no interaction with her at this point?
No.
You'd agree that this is at 123 and 17Z of your body camera footage?
Yes.
Yeah, I had my hands showing though, but Mr. Adam in the store vouched for me.
Me too.
We
already know.
Who's Adam?
I spent my money. I paid for my phone.
I was getting a laptop and it didn't work, so he gave me my funds back.
Okay.
You can come in and talk to him.
Okay, sure.
You mind if I get my little mask?
Where is it? What is it?
My COVID mask.
Where is it?
Right here.
Go ahead.
Huh?
Go ahead. Let's make it quick. Face me.
Huh?
Face me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I hope I have it.
You motherfuckers don't get us in trouble for nothing. I ain't in trouble. I don't got no warrant. I don't give a fuck.
That's good. If you guys are on no warrants or nothing, then after all this is settled, you guys are good to walk.
All this is settled. Can't y'all just ask him?
Let's wait. Don't you hear your friend talking? Yelling over there? I can see him yelling and talking over there. He's making
talk to the store person.
I'm waiting for my partners.
Yeah, for the store.
Gotta talk to my partner to see what's up.
He said he knew them too, so I was asking him, did he know them? He said
I know him very well, all of them.
Floyd. You know Floyd?
Yeah, I'm talking about I know the people in the store very well.
Okay, that's good.
212 has the closest available. If you could start for an assault at next door to 2313 Washington Street Northeast. There's a blackmail assault email. Copy.
Officer, I'm just gonna look right here at the door, just see if I left it down right here. Just see, sir. That's it.
All right, that's it, man, Ricardo. Just the door. All right?
Yeah.
Nobody's come close to us, so right now we don't need a mask yet. So right now nobody's come close to us, so we're good with the mask.
Oh, that he called her? Did he call her? Floyd called her? Huh? Is it a white girl? Yeah. She's short? Yeah, right here.
Stay put, guys. All right? I want to be involved in that.
You just let us go.
The victim is crying and the suspect has a gun. We need a gun as a female.
They did something for him.
All right, let's stay here, all right?
They did something because them motherfuckers taking pictures over there.
Yeah, I'm on the phone. Yeah, they
Squad 330, EMS is at Portland and 36.
I don't know. I doubt it. This guy here got us. Mr. Chief.
Hello, 38 Copy, I was just giving you their updated location there. Stay around.
I wish Mr. Chang was just gonna let us walk in with him with Mr. Adams. Just goddamn.
Let's stay put here. All right, tell my partners and I'm done over there that they can figure things out. We'll figure things out, all right? Right now, we're grabbing an ambulance for your buddy, Port Florida, okay?
Oh, fuck.
So he might have hurt himself.
They hurt him?
He might have hurt himself. All right?